subject of this week is the wreck itself, which is kind of like metaphysical or something. But we've been going through motives of why we do things and what our motives should be and things like that. And so this week we're going to be talking about why we're here and why we're doing what we're doing, why the wreck is the wreck. And so speaking of Caleb being part of us starting and rebranding this, and like I said, most of you weren't here at that time, and so you guys don't know what the wreck stands for or what our vision is. And in addition to that, our vision is currently progressing quite quickly and developing even further, paired with the big changes going on in our main church as well. And so we want to communicate all of that tonight. Usually we're talking a lot about morality and talking about the gospel and things like that. Today we're going to be really practical and talking straight at everything that we're talking about today just concerns all of us in this room, except for maybe the people who live in Israel or in Fresno. But everybody but the Israel and Fresno people. I'm just kidding. But the theory is probably pretty good for you guys, so that's good. All right. Anyways, so yeah, we're talking about the wreck today. And you can go to the next slide. I don't even know what I'm doing. Okay, yeah. You can go back. I'm sorry. Okay, so... No, it's fine. It's fine. So basically, I'm going to talk about why we're here. I'm talking about why this is important to be here. I'm going to talk about what our vision is and talk about what we want to enlist you guys in as well. So the first aspect of this is I'm going to talk about kind of what's the point of having a young adults group in the first place. Now, before young adults group, because our young adults group goes from 18 to 28 years old. So before young adults group, you're in the youth group, effectively, some youth group somewhere, unless you just get saved after that. And so the function of a youth group is to separate the youth from the main body for age-appropriate worship and study and fellowship. And the reason behind that is because the youth have different needs than adults, and they need specialized studies, and they need a specialized form of fellowship and worship and things like that, and they have different interests and things. So it's really geared towards that age group. Just like children's ministry is geared towards an age group. Now, the problem, I believe, with a lot of young adults groups is we become like a second youth group. And that's where we were a couple of years ago kind of feeling like what we were before we rebranded to the wreck. We felt like we were just like a second youth group. And that's fairly unhelpful because it is a great thing for the youth because that's where they're at in life. But if we just tag on another youth group and you're in college or you're at your job and you're working in the workforce and you're trying to move up into the adult world and you feel like you're kind of dragged back by just the second group of people you hang out with at church, and maybe it lacks some sort of a vision or focus. And so we wanted to move away from that to some purpose. So that's what a youth group is. And then next we have the main church. This is kind of like a philosophy of what a main church should be functioning as. So the first thing is the main church body should be doing in-reach, which comes in two ways. One is being fed. So we feed our congregation by doing corporate things. Corporate things are like Sunday morning service, Wednesday night service, special services, Easter, Good Friday, things like that. Those are like corporate feedings, way that you get fed. You go to the pews and you sit there and you listen to the sermon. That's a corporate feeding. Second is a personal feeding. That's like more personal-based discipleship group type stuff, like men's and women's groups and the Marriage Matters ministry, home fellowships, the wreck. These are like personal ways of being fed. The next thing about InReach that we do is feeding. So one thing is you come to church to be fed. And the next thing you come to church to feed others, serve others. So two ways that happens is serving in ministry, which is like when you're a ministry leader or you're just serving in a general ministry and you're serving other people. The next way that happens is fellowship. And so that's just between services, at group gatherings, when you're hanging out away from church. Any of that stuff counts as fellowship. And that helps build each other up and it helps feed each other. So those are in-reach. In-reach basically being we're serving each other, being fed by each other, feeding each other. So the next function of the main church is outreach. That happens in two ways. One is community outreach. That happens off-campus and on-campus. Off-campus outreach is like La Mirada City events that we had engaged in, street evangelism, which we did some of that as a church this morning, actually, I heard. So Arnold took some people out and did some street evangelism, door-to-door witnessing stuff. And then our ambassador program that Morgan was talking about would be a good example of outreach off campus. Then on-campus outreach is like church events like our Harvest Day on Halloween or our Easter Sunday if we host it on campus. That's an on-campus outreach. Bring a friend day. Like sometimes we do that at church where we say everybody bring a friend. Those are things where it's an outreach. It's focused on the people outside of our church, but we're bringing them into our on-campus. The second part of outreach would be missionary outreach, which is sending missionaries, individuals to other places, which would include like the trip to Israel. So that's church-sponsored, church-equipped, church-sent-out missionaries. The second thing would be church plants, where we plant a church. And we've got, I think, over 20 of those that our church has planted. And those are also church-sponsored, church-equipped, church-sent-out. And we're hoping that those become independent from us eventually. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but we're sending those out. So that's basically how the main church functions. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to go from the youth group to the main church. We're trying to take kids in the youth group and bring them to the main church. Now, we might get you at where you've already been out of high school for 2 years or something. And that's all fine, but I think everybody in here would agree that we're not completely ingrained in the main church body yet as just adults, right? We're also definitely not ingrained in the high schoolers. And so we're in like this awkward middle section. And what we're trying to do is take that and just move it continuously towards the main church. We're also at the same time reaching back to the high schoolers and to the young adults that are younger than us or just less experienced than us, and we're wanting to pull them along with us. So it's just a chain of moving and maturing, and we're following sort of a natural process there. We're not trying to just turn an 18-year-old into a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old, but we're trying to naturally transition into adults. So that brings us to, so that was kind of general stuff, but this brings us to us, specifically the REC. The REC stands for Raised, Equipped, and Called. Me and Brian spent a long time praying about this and thinking about this a couple years ago, and we thought this would be a good name that captures our vision, what we want. And so, like I said before, it's the young adults group of our church, but we made it so that we would reach out to surrounding groups as well. So even people that don't go to our church, but don't have a young adults group or something that functions like what we're talking about, they're invited as well to be with us here. And so the young adults of our church and the surrounding community for ages 18 to 28. And the age bracket on there is just so that I'm going to be really explicit and open with you guys about all this stuff since I'm telling you why we do everything we do. And so under 18, we bracket theirs for legal purposes and also just for what our vision is. Our vision is not to serve the high schoolers. That's what the high school group's vision is. Our vision is to serve the young adults the next step. So that's why I capped it there. 28, yeah, that's kind of a loose cap. As far as 18, that's kind of a hard line for legal issues and things. But 28 is kind of a loose cap. You know, if a 29-year-old came, hey, I really want to be in your group, you know, of course, we'd probably let them. But the idea behind that is we want you to grow and grow. You know what I mean? And we don't want you to just stick in an area. We want you to continue to move. We don't want you to get stuck at a place. And so that encourages, this time is like a 10, 11-year process where we're encouraging you to grow. And then hopefully by then you're ready to kind of move on from us. So the first part of that, I'm just going to break down each part of the REC. So the first part is raised. And this is transitioning young adults from high school-based church interaction to complete integration in the main church body. This is exactly what I've kind of led up to. And so we're raising the young adults, or the high schoolers, into complete integration into the church body. So in order to kind of illustrate this, and I think this will be helpful for us for the rest of tonight, I want to look at David a little bit. And so we got some verses on David here. In 1 Samuel 16, Samuel comes to David's family house and is looking to anoint a new king. And so he eventually, through a long process of getting a bunch of no answers, finds David and anoints David as king. So David, in other words, has this sort of distant calling on his life that doesn't apply to him right now. He's anointed king, but he's not the king functionally, even though God anointed him as king. And so it's sort of this distant calling that he isn't doing anything with. He goes back to managing sheep after that. And so it's just kind of future calling there. Then in 1 Samuel 17:26, David goes up to the front lines where his brothers are fighting in the war against the Philistines. And he figures out that nobody's fighting Goliath. And so what goes through his mind is, I thought I've always been taught that God's on our side, and if God's on our side, nothing can come against us, right? You guys have always taught that. Why is nobody going and fighting Goliath? This guy's taunting us, taunting our God. Why is nobody going and fighting? And he's kind of put down by his brother, his older brother, and his brother's like, you just want some of the action. You just want to be a part of us. Go away. Go back home. You're stupid. You're young. You don't understand. But he kept speaking out. Now this bold talk of David is the talk of a youthful person for sure. Because all these guys that were fighting in this war, they were experienced warriors. They know, they have a reason not to fight Goliath. It's not just as simple as, to them, it's not just as simple as, either God's on our side or not, either the nation of Israel or not. It's, no, I fought in a bunch of battles, and I know if I fight that guy, I'm going to die, because I've seen it happen to a bunch of my brothers around me. And so they had wisdom that told them, I shouldn't go fight Goliath. David comes in with this energetic, hopeful, just blind faith in God. Not blind. I don't want to say blind. It was warranted, but it was just this very strong faith in God, based on less on experience and more on truth, what he's been told. And he comes in and says we should just be fighting it. So this kind of a thing sometimes gets put down by those who are older than us. Like when we're excited about and hopeful and thinking about all that we can do in ministry. Sometimes we're told, don't think that way. You're just immature. You don't know how the world works. What I want to say is I want to use our age and our position in life for the glory of God here. And I want to encourage us to think that way. Now, we're also later on going to talk about taking the wisdom of those who are older than us. But we want to capture that passion that we have. We want to capture that hope that we have. And we want to use that for the kingdom, for ministry. Then in 1732, David told Saul about being prepared to fight Goliath. And we'll cover that in a second. In Samuel 1741, David goes up against Goliath and kills him with faithful confidence in his words and action. Goliath is just mocking him like crazy and mocking his God. And David, just a really young man, just says, nope, I'm fighting for my God, and he takes down Goliath. The rest of David's life consists of him serving Saul, then being built up by Jonathan, Saul's son. David lives on the run for a while. He gets wise counsel of people around him. He fights for Israel. Eventually, after a long time of waiting, he eventually gets made king. And you think all the way back to the very beginning when David was anointed king, and it takes him so long and a lot of different processes to actually get made king. And so this is kind of a situation that we're looking at right now. And I want to look at 1 Samuel 17:32 through 37. And David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine. And Saul said to David, you are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are a youth, and he has been a man of war from his youth. But David said to Saul, your servant used to keep sheep for his father, and when there came a lion or a bear, he took a lamb from the flock. I went after him and struck him and delivered it out of his mouth. And if he rose against me, I caught him by his beard and struck him and killed him. Your servant has struck down both lions and bears, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be like one of them, for he has defied the armies of the living God. And David said, "The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." And Saul said to David, "Go, and the Lord be with you." So I want to focus in on this where I think we're at in the story of David that I just went through. I think we're at sort of this position where we've done a lot of things in our past at different levels, each of us, and we're looking at future kind of battles that we're going to be accomplishing. So, number one, we want to put, as the wreck, we want to put you in front of lions and bears. And by that I mean we want to give you small but important battles to train you for your future. So we give you things that are tough, that challenge you, but aren't Goliath, lions and bears, and then you accomplish them in ministry. Different ministries, different leadership positions, different things that you can be called to that would work for you. Number two, for helping to raise you, we want to bring you from the pasture to the front lines. Speaking of David's term, which just means that we want to provide a way for you to continue to move forward in ministry, growing and being challenged. We want to help you make the path. So without a young adults ministry, you're typically on your own. Like, you show up to church and you're a 19-year-old and you're like, I'm out of high school now, but I'm not really an adult yet. I'm kind of in this middle stage, and I'm trying to be an adult, and I got to figure my way out into working with these adults. And we want to help you walk with you through that process. Instead of you just being on your own to kind of figure out where you should serve in ministry and stuff, we want to be beside you, looking at where you want to go, walking with you, communicating with the ministries, the existing ministries for you a little bit, so that they're welcoming you in as well. They're ready to help mature you and disciple you as well, and we can kind of partner all together on that process of you moving forward. The third thing we want to do is we want to provide you with wise counsel, just like David eventually had wise counsel. We want to ensure that you are discipled and mentored in knowledge and wisdom for the future. So you have abilities, no doubt. You have strengths, spiritual gifts, all of these kinds of things. But we want to build off of that, what you already have, and train you, give you knowledge and wisdom as well. And a lot of the way we do that would be by providing someone who's been in that ministry for a lot longer than you and is able to help you with that. So that's how we would help raise you, so to speak. That's the raised part of the wreck equation. The next part is equipped. Equipped, that part is teaching and training young adults to be equipped for general ministry as well as specific ministries they are currently involved in or are called to in the future as a part of our church or any other Christian ministry. There's a lot of different parts of that statement. I'm just going to break it down. General ministry just being working in a church in a variety of different things. Specific ministries just being the thing that's like your niche, the thing that you like to do. Things that you're currently involved in, things that you're doing, or things that you might be doing in the future. And then at our church or another church. And that part's less of a concern to us. We, because we're investing with you, walking with you, we care about you because we know you on a personal level. And so we don't want you to leave because of that. But at the same time, for the kingdom of God, we're more concerned that you guys are well equipped and strong and confident and able to lead or at least function in your ministry. And so if that means you guys are going somewhere else, that's great. And if that means you're staying here, that's great as well. And so we want to equip you for whatever Christian ministry you'd be doing for that. So Colossians 1:28, him we proclaim, warning everyone and teaching everyone with all wisdom, that we may present everyone mature in Christ. Colossians 3:15 through 16, paired with that. And let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body, and be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God. So I just want to outline 5 major points that kind of taking from these passages, applying them, but specifically in the function of our young adults group. One is corporate teaching. I'm talking about the rec here. The rec specifically. So our corporate teaching, in order to train you and admonish you, and equip you. We want to teach you, which is what we're doing right now at the rec. That's teaching. Also, we do workshops every once in a while. We have some of those online. We have the YouTube videos, everything that we do up online to help that process, and then retreats and things that we go to, or conferences or things like that. Those are all corporate teachings that are meant to train you up in a specific way, usually in a general sense, specifically for a general sense, but we're training you up through corporate teaching. The next one is personal discipleship, and that works through our discipleship groups, which we have, and we're going to continue to expand and get more discipleship groups this coming January. And so through our discipleship groups, through mentoring, which would be more of a one-on-one type of a situation, through integration, which is where we're integrating with the church body, and I'm going to talk about that more too, but a lot of you are already doing that in the worship ministry or in Awanas or different things like that, but you see some of us in different areas of the main church body doing different things, and that would be the integration part we're talking about. And then youth ministry mentoring. So the mentoring of our own people, as well as the youth ministry mentoring, is stuff that we're going to be developing in the future. But we want to have different people from our body, or the rec, different people from the rec mentoring youth kids, and then we also want people ministering or mentoring different people here. And so those are things we're going to be developing for personal discipleship. And we have some of them already, but we're going to be pushing that hard in the future as well. The third is community fellowship, and that's all the stuff that we do here as a group. The rec, different activities, our events days, different friendships that are here within the room, courtyard conversations. On Sunday morning, I see that we magnet together. Like we just come together, we attract each other, and we get in like a big group or something in the courtyard. And so that kind of thing is community fellowship that we're doing together, building each other up. The fourth thing is ministry leadership, which you could be a leader of different ministries that we're doing here at the rec, like the ambassador program. You can do main church ministries, be a leader of one of those, and just integration type stuff, again, where the things that we're integrating in leadership in other parts of the church, those ministry leaderships. And then the fifth being gospel-centered, which is, again, being here. We're preaching the gospel almost every time together. And then you can also preach the gospel to bring people to the group with you. Then the ambassador program is for every one of our secular schools that we're going to. We're gospel-centered on those trips to the secular schools. And our time apart from the church, in your job, at your school, wherever you're at, should be gospel-centered as well. So this long list of things are the 5 main ways, kind of general categories of how we want to equip you. Now, the thing about them is, like, you got to be here for them to work, obviously, right? And so what we're not trying to do is we're not trying to burden you with things. We're not trying to give you a bunch of things that you don't need. We're not trying to get you to go to a billion different services during the week. We're not trying to give you a bunch of different responsibilities. What we are trying to do is get you to be ministered to in all 5 of these ways by us. And so you're not going to do everything with us and with the church, but we want you plugged into something to cover each one of these categories, and we want to help you in that process. It's part of number 3 is us working together as a team here. It's like there's like this weird dichotomy in churches a lot now, where it's like leadership's over here and like the congregation's over here, and that just makes me really uncomfortable. We want to be working together. Okay, me and Josh aren't just like off on our own somewhere, but we're part of this group with you guys, and we're ministered to by you guys as well, like I described before. And so part of this whole model working is everybody being involved in ministering to each other and using this group as a means to accomplish these things, because again, we're doing specific things to help you move forward in your ministry and your callings and things like that. And so right now, the things that we have very much set up already is our 2 meetings twice a month, which is this one and the one in the future. And that's to encourage you guys in more of a corporate setting. We also have discipleship groups, and we'll be coming to some of you about those in the future. If you're interested in them, come to me or Josh about them as well. But that will be to kind of raise up leaders in the group to lead others as well. Big thing is the ambassador program. Our church right now is thinking, in the main body, we're thinking, how do we invest in the city of La Mirada better? How do we invest in our community better? One of our first attempts at doing this is in the rec with this ambassador program and us affecting the college campuses in the area. We stretch out a little bit past La Mirada, but we are trying to affect the ones in the area. And so what Morgan's asking for with this program is not a lot. You just learn how to go on this campus and preach the gospel, basically. You just learn that. You learn the rules, you learn how to do it, and you go on the campus and you just preach the gospel to the kids and invite them to the rec. That's not like the main focus of it, but we want to be a church outlet for them. And so we're inviting them to the rec, we're working with our Christian club, like she said, and we're preaching the gospel on campuses. And that has to be you guys. Should be a function of our church, of our rec, of the young adults group. But me and Josh can't go to 1,000 different campuses. In addition to that, this group is not me and Josh, right? And this group is all of us. And so Morgan, for instance, has stepped up to lead this particular ministry of our young adults group. And so we want a lot of you to step up to just invest in a single college campus. And Morgan will teach you how to do it, and she has a lot of experience in that area. I worked with her in high school for numerous years on this type of a thing, and she's very well equipped and prepared to do this and lead you guys in this. And you guys it's pretty simple, just one day every 2 weeks or something, going to that college campus for a couple hours and investing in students. And it's a really good ministry, but this is like a stepping stone. So we're going to be doing a lot of this type of stuff in the main church body. And if we can get this right here, then you guys can eventually be teaching other people how to do it and doing other ministries for our church. And then you guys, after we get that right, can do other ministries and teach other people to teach other people, right? And we keep continuing to grow. So it's not, what we're not doing in any of this stuff is saying we want you in a position and just leave you there. What we want you in a position that fits your callings and things and help you grow to another position and help you pull people behind you to grow into the position that you were just in as well, a discipleship type model. And, everybody's called to evangelize, so particularly this ministry is kind of everybody's calling as well. But I think it would give us some foundational principles that will help us in whatever ministry we're in, the ambassador program. But so this is how we are trying to equip you guys. Now, with the called aspect. Called discipling and walking with young adults to help them identify their callings, giftings, and directions in life and ministry. So Ephesians 4-16 says, "And he gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the shepherds, the teachers, to equip the saints for the work of the ministry, for building up the body of Christ, until we all attain to the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God, to mature manhood, to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ, so that we may no longer be children tossed to and fro by waves and carried about by every wind of doctrine, by human cunning, by craftiness and deceitful schemes. Rather, speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in every way into him who is the head, into Christ, from whom the whole body, joined and held together by every joint with which it is equipped, with each part is working properly, makes the body grow so that it builds itself up in love." So 5 principles that we're gaining from this passage, specifically regarding to the way that we're going to help you with your callings as the rec. First one being giftings, your giftings. Everybody in the room has spiritual and physical giftings. So you guys know those, obviously.
It's something.
It's okay.
What unexpectedly.
Technology. Yeah.
Whatever.
Okay. Okay, so the 5 ways with giftings. Okay, so spiritual and physical. You guys know your giftings. You know where you're at spiritually and particularly physically probably. But there's also probably things that you don't know. And wherever you're at in knowledge of your own giftings and things, we want to identify them and help them grow as well. And help you identify what that would be useful for. And so everybody's kind of thinking in their mind, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? What should I do for the rest of my life? What ministries am I called to? Where should I go? Should I switch out of this ministry, that ministry? We really want to be a part of that process with you. And that'll probably be through personal interactions with us. So the closer you get to me and Josh, the more you can ask us those kinds of questions, but also through discipleship groups and things like that is where we would be addressing those types of things. The second thing is equipping. So you have the giftings and everything, but just the gifting, the spiritual or the physical gifting isn't enough. And so we want to give you more knowledge and experience in that as well. It's enough for you to be called. It's enough for you to be enlisted in ministry. But we want to build off of that and continue to grow in Christ that way. So we want to provide you with more knowledge and experience in those areas, either directly from ourselves or plugging you in with people in ministry who have been there for years and are wise in those things to help you grow in those things. Everybody really should be getting equipped in more knowledge and experience in whatever they're doing. And, we want to be talking to people wiser than us no matter what we're doing. So the third is maturing in stature and adulthood. Stature being, according to the verse, stature of the fullness of Christ. So becoming more like Christ. And adulthood, maturing into adulthood, like I said, away from kind of the adolescence and more into the adulthood. And we want to be a part of that process as well as helping you to become more like Christ and encouraging you guys to be more into the adult area and interacting with the adults as well. Growing is number 4, and growing specifically in truth and love. So this is probably mostly a corporate teaching type of thing, but we're going to continue to teach truth to you guys. So you grow in truth, and then hopefully we'll be modeling love with you guys, and that would be encouraging you to grow in love as well. And then number 5 is joined, building and being built up. So joining with the church, joining with each other to build each other up, being built up ourselves, building each other up as well. So that's kind of how we are encouraging and coming alongside you for the call. This one is very much of us walking with you type of a thing, as many of them are, but this one, the call is specifically a lot of us walking with you. And we really want to have kind of closer relationships with you guys. And so we want to walk with you with these callings and things and know where you're going and what you're thinking about and what struggles you're going through in ministry and all of those kinds of things. And so we want to be an outlet for that as well. So that's the 3 letters, the REC, right? And so one huge focus of this vision is the integration, like I said, into the church. And so 2 things that we specifically want to focus on about that integration is 1 Peter 5:5. Likewise, you who are younger, be subject to the elders. Clothe yourselves, all of you, with humility towards one another. For God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. So 3 principles for us from this verse. First is submission. We're young. We have great ideas. We have great passions. We have, in a lot of cases, an independence about us. Yet, we still need to be submitting to those who are placed above us. Most cases, that'll be like older people, right? But in some cases, it'll be people our same age or maybe even younger. This submission is a sign of humility, which we'll get to in a second. But this is where we grow in a specific sense. You grow submitted to other people in a sense that you don't necessarily grow as a leader. And so it's important to hit this step well in our submitting of other people and submit to other people well. And in a lot of ways, it's a reflection of how we're submitted to Christ. Second thing here is humility. again, like I said about the David thing, I want to encourage us to have that sort of a passion where we will really go after what we see. And we really have a lot of faith and not a lot of things holding us back from accomplishing things. I want to encourage that from us. I feel like more than not, that's put down. Like, don't be that way. But I want to encourage that. However, we need to do that through the lens of humility. We need to do that through humility. So we want to be passionate and we want to go after things that may be crazy to go after. But we want to do that while being humble, understanding that we're faulty and we do fail. And understanding, most importantly, that we don't know everything. Which, easy to say, hard to actually act that way, like we don't know everything. And so we want to be humble enough to go after those things, but learning from the wise people who have come before us. A lot of times we can look at the people who are in ministry now and say, I could do a better job than that. And I wouldn't necessarily discourage that, because we want to be continuously innovating and growing. However, when you're thinking, I could do a better job than that, the thinking should be from a humbled position. So it's not a position of, I'm better than them, or I could be better than them type of a position. It's from a position of, I need to grow into where they're at. And as I grow into that, these are the things that I could possibly do in a better way. Do you see the difference between the two? One being not humble and one being humble. I remember, it's just a funny story, because I'm not telling any stories because I'm, talking about us, but it's just a funny story really quick, is I have some married friends, and they have 2 kids, and the man, Zach, I've talked to you guys about him before, but he used to be my mentor when I first became a Christian, but now we're kind of friends. So a couple years ago, it's quite a few years now, but I was like really giving them advice on how to be parents. I was like telling them how to be parents. I was younger. And so I was like telling them what they were doing wrong and what they, what they should be doing and stuff. And they were just like, And anyways, it was just kind of that uncomfortable thing, right? But I was over there in Maryland visiting them this past summer. And while I was over there, I just thought back to that time. And I was sitting around with them, and I was like, guys, I'm really sorry. And they were like, oh, it's okay. You were young, and you didn't know what you're saying, and we know you. You're okay. But it was like ridiculous, right? I'm like an 18-year-old or 17-year-old telling these guys how to parent, and they have 2 kids, and I've got, not even a girlfriend. And so that kind of thing. Now, the thing is there may have been some of the things that I said that could have been right? But on the whole, I'm not as mature of a parent as them by far. And so even if I had some things that were correct that they could have done better, I'm still not as good at them. And so still there's a more humble way of going about that, passionate, youthful, kind of vibe. So anyways, there's a story for you. The last one is fear of the Lord, which is not directly from this verse, I'll admit, but it is from our retreat verse. So fear of the Lord is a place that we need to be in as young adults, because there's a fearlessness about being young. And I want to say that's good. But the only fear we should have is the fear of the Lord. The fear of the Lord should conquer every other fear that we have. So we're not afraid of any of those, but we should have the fear of the Lord. If we find ourselves fearing other things, then we want to go back to the fear of the Lord to protect us from that, and grab our youthfulness where we're not afraid. If we're finding ourselves not being afraid of the Lord and just doing whatever we want to really go back to the fear of the Lord, because God's got a lot of grace for us and He lets us get away with a lot, especially when we're young, I think. But He is quite powerful, and the extent of His judgment to those who receive it is something that we should really shiver at, even if we're in a position that we're not going to receive that judgment, because it is so intense and so defeating that it should overwhelm us. And that fear is what keeps us in line with His goodness. And so we should keep that in mind as we're going forward fearless, which I want to encourage us to do, go forward fearless. Keep that fear of the Lord in us so that we don't waver from side to side, that we press forward more passionately than anybody's willing to do, without fear like nobody's willing to do. Pave roads that nobody has done yet. I want to do that. I want to do that with the fear of the Lord. So that's the first part of integration that I want to focus on. The second part of integration that I want to focus on, again, integration being us moving into the adults' ministries. 1 Timothy 4:12, let no one despise you for your youth, but set the believers an example in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, in purity. So the first principle from this, be confident in your place. We're young, we're not experienced in the world, we're not experienced in life, we're not as experienced in ministry in a lot of cases. Those things are true as people who are already in ministry in the churches. That should not make us less confident about the place that God has put us in. So all that humility, is great. And now that we have that lens to walk through, humility and submission, now that we're walking through that lens, fear of the Lord, now we want to think, but we're confident in what God has given us to do. We don't want to put down where God has placed us. God is calling us to something, and we should be confident in doing that thing because God has raised us up and prepared us. Just like David comes to Goliath with this confidence. God had me take down lions and bears. I can take down Goliath then through his power. If he had me doing lions and bears, he could have me doing that. That's where we should come into each new position that we're stepping into. Every time we grow, we should be going into it like, those lions and bears, God brought me through. And now I'm going to go face Goliath with this confidence. Second principle from this, Timothy 4, be an example. We modeled the Rec as an example to the main church in many different ways. Technology, preaching the gospel on college campuses, being passionate, being youth passionate about ministry. We modeled the Rec in order to encourage us to set an example for the rest of the church, both younger people and older people alike, in order to encourage them. We're raising up people within our young adults group in order to encourage each other on this. And so we want to be a good example. We want to have good speech. We want to have good conduct. We want to love each other. We want to have faith, and we want to be pure. Here's the thing about this. There's a reason why older people are timid about giving younger people authority. And that reason is younger people often fail because they haven't experienced those failures in the past. And all of these things are true. What me and Josh want to ask of you guys and call of you guys is to be more mature than anybody else our age, to grow in Christ further than anybody else our age, to lead people in a way that other people our age are not leading people. And we know you guys and have worked with you guys for years, and we care about you guys, and we think that you guys can do it. We ourselves are attempting to do this very same thing. And so we want you guys to come along with us in us. But it calls of us something that other people our age aren't called of. Our culture doesn't call people of our age to be mature in this way. It doesn't. But we want to call you guys and call ourselves. We want to hold you guys accountable, and we want you guys to hold us accountable to being this, more mature, an example to even the wise people above us of how to walk in godliness and righteousness. And it's a lot to ask of you guys, but I think it's beneficial. I think you guys can do it, and I think it'll bring great fruit. And this is the type of call that I think is necessary for things like revival, calling us to be faithful in a way that many people around us aren't, so that we can cause a movement here to grow together and to affect our community around us. And that's what we're calling the Rec to be. And the last one, again, not from this verse, but from other verses, run the race, fight the fight. I want to use that passion. I mean, I've played games with you guys. I've done stuff with you guys. I know you guys are passionate about stuff. I want to use that passion. You guys know I have tons of passion. I want to use that passion that we have as youth to light a fire. Pastor Brian, quite a few months ago actually, looked at our church and said, we've just become stagnant. And his answer to that was turn to the youth to advise us on how to bring life to the church. That's us. That call falls on our lap. And I want to use that to fight and run the race and ignite our church. We have such a unique position here, a very unique position, where our church is allowing us to take some bigger roles and lead the church in some different ways and have influence over the church. The leadership of the rec are being raised up in the church. And what we want to do is we want to raise you guys up with us. We want you guys to come up alongside us so that all of us can be a part of this movement. We want us to be an example. We want us to fight the fight together. And that's our passion for this group here. And this is a newer and more unfolding passion, but we want you guys to be a part of that. Now, what we're not doing is we're not pushing out the older generation. I want to be clear about that because that may be kind of underlining assumption. That's what we're not doing. We're not pushing out the older generation. What we're doing is coming alongside them, working side by side with them. They have wisdom and experience that none of us have. And we want to use that to help us. But we have passion and we have this faith of David that we can offer them. And a new perspective of looking at things that we can offer them. And I think together, the older generation and us coming alongside each other will be beneficial for the church. And I want to encourage us to do that. So, with all this being said, our vision, what we want to do in the church. Now, I'm going to toss the ball into you guys' court and say that we have 1,000 different things that we're thinking about what we could do with you guys and your skills. You guys are very talented, very gifted, very spiritually blessed people in your spiritual giftings. And we have 1,000 things that we think you guys would be good at. But we obviously can't force you guys to do things. You guys, in a lot of ways, are doing things apart from our group that are really awesome. And we want to encourage those as well. But what we want to encourage specifically is us to work together here on this. And so we want you guys to, the ball's in your court, come to us and engage with us and let us work together on moving forward in this. So we can help you progress in the ministries that you're desiring and the ministries that you're gifted for, and also plug you into things that we've got going on here as well. So that being said, I encourage you guys to sign up for the ambassador program. That being kind of just a side thing for us all to kind of go to a campus once a week. But further than that, I encourage you to meet with me and Josh and talk about where you guys want to be, because we want to help you with that. And we have influence over the main church body. We have influence over every ministry here at the church. And so we can help you guys get worked into those ministries. We can help you guys learn different ministries. We can help you guys get plugged in. If you guys have something that's burning on your mind, like, there's this hole and people aren't getting fed in this way, or something's wrong here, we're the ones to talk to. You talk to us and you say, look, I'm concerned about this and this. And it's not like, not a bashing. You're not like bashing our church, right? But you're constructively working with us. Like, hey, I love this church. I'm a part of this church. I want this church to be better. Here's in a way that I think that might help. And we might be looking at something that you're not seeing, or we might just be not seeing what you're seeing. And you guys could be really helping us. And so we want to open that conversation. We're offering this to you guys as a unique position close to us, close to me and Josh, where you guys can be a part of this in a big way. And so I want to plug you guys in and engage, and I want to start growing the group. The goal is to have this group right here, you guys who are here and the couple who couldn't make it today. I want you guys to be the leaders of the young adults coming up, and young adults who are off, not in our group right now, who can come to our group from other schools through the ambassador program and through other things like that. I want you guys to be the leaders of those guys and help them, disciple them, raise them up, encourage them, and I want to grow together with you guys. And that is the vision of the rec.